The first thing that hits you is the smell. One officer says it quietly, almost to himself. "Oh, I got a whiff. There's something in there."
Whoa. Got a whiff. There's something in there.
The kind that stretches just long enough for every person in that garage to know what comes next, but nobody wants to be the one to say it out loud. And then the words that will end Daniel Rue's lie for good. "There's a person in here. Go get him a handcuff."
There's a person in here. Go get him a handcuff.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because before the freezer, there was a doorstep. Before the doorstep, there was a phone that rang twice and went silent. And before any of that, there was a woman named Monique, and a stranger she made the mistake of trusting. She never left without her dogs. Mon'nique Gilbertson was 68 years old, and she was the kind of woman a community notices when she goes quiet. She'd lived in her Las Vegas 55-plus residential complex long enough to become part of its daily rhythm. Mornings, she'd walk her dogs through the complex, stopping to chat with whoever was out. She knew the maintenance staff by name. She brought things to the front office: coffee, questions, conversation. Multiple check-in calls a day wasn't unusual for Monique. It wasn't anxious behavior, it was just her, present, engaged, the kind of neighbor who remembered your birthday and actually showed up. Her dogs were never far from her side. Everyone in the building knew it. She took them everywhere she possibly could: errands, visits, walks around the complex at dusk. The dogs weren't just pets, they were a fixture of who she was, as recognizable as her voice or her wave from across the parking lot. That's the woman Daniel Rue moved in with, and that's the woman no one had heard from in 14 days. By November 6th, 2023, the worry at the front office had curdled into something closer to dread. Monique's last contact had been October 22nd, a routine check-in, nothing unusual, no indication it would be the last one. When the days kept passing with no word, staff tried her number. The first call rolled to voicemail. The second time, someone answered, but said nothing. Silence on the line. Then the click of a disconnected call. Her dogs were going insane inside the unit. You could hear them from the hallway. A community employee placed the 911 call and said it plainly to the dispatcher. They wouldn't do that if she was okay.
I have a request for a wellness check on a resident.
When was the last time you heard or seen her?
So the last time she called the office was on the 22nd of October. We've knocked on her door. Her dogs are going insane, which they wouldn't do if she was okay. When I called, the first time it went to voicemail, and I called again. Someone answered, didn't say anything. I kept saying hello, hello, and then they hung up. She called you guys about 2 weeks ago. She had a roommate issue, and she called because in her roommate's stuff she had found a gun.
Officers were dispatched immediately. None of them knew yet what was waiting inside. The man at the door. When Las Vegas PD pulled up to Monique's address, the first thing they noticed was her car, parked in the driveway, exactly where it always sat. A man's hat visible through the window, and something else in the back, a coil of rope. The door opened before they could knock twice.
God damn. Jesus.
I'm so sorry. I was like, I just got a shower. Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, we've been knocking.
Well, I rent this place.
What's your name?
My name's Jaslyn.
Where's Monique at?
Monique is I'm house sitting right now. She left town for a while.
Where is she? No, she didn't. Where is she?
No, she really did. I swear.
Okay, where is she?
I mean,
Her car's here.
I know her car's here. She has me house sitting. I have I got my rent receipts.
You're not supposed to be here. Come outside.
Huh?
Come outside.
She doesn't have anyone here.
No,
Okay,
I have rent receipts right here actually.
Hey, come outside.
Well, I'm
let's
not talking
talk.
outside right now. I have paperwork that I'm supposed to be here. Like, you know what I mean? And like,
Yeah, you need to come outside and show us that paperwork.
okay, I have paperwork right here. And I'm not going to come outside right now. Though. I have legal rights.
This is the, what's your name?
My name's Jaslyn. I was
Jazz?
Yeah, Jazz. I was
Okay,
renting.
understand that I'm here to do a welfare check on the occupant of this resident. I am going to do that. You need to come out of that.
Well, she's not here right now, though.
You need to step outside right now. I am giving you a legal and lawful command. If you do not obey that command, I'm going to take you to jail and I'm going to charge you with
But
it.
I have
Step out of that door
Get
right
out of the
now.
house.
no, excuse me. No, I have rights. I call my attorney then. Like,
He was 37 years old, damp-haired, with a smile that arrived slightly too fast. He introduced himself as Jason, his legal name was Daniel Rue, and before a single officer had asked a question, he was already explaining. Just got out of the shower, Monique was out of town, everything was fine. The words came quick and loose, like a story rehearsed but not quite memorized. Pressed on where Monique had gone, Daniel cited a family emergency, her brother, somewhere on the East Coast. She'd left him in charge, house-sitting, he said. He had paperwork, rent receipts, been there since September. An officer's days drifted past him to the driveway, to the car that hadn't moved. Daniel pivoted without missing a beat. She left the car, asked him to stay. He had documentation. He'd show them. Just give him a minute. Just let him go back inside. There it was. In under 60 seconds, Daniel had already contradicted himself twice. First, he rented the place, then he was house-sitting. Two entirely different arrangements, neither asked for, offered back to back, like a man cycling through options. The officers noted it, said nothing, kept asking questions, let the inconsistencies accumulate. The front office had no record of Daniel. The HOA had no record. Security had no record. Monique, who called the front desk multiple times a day, who'd lived there long enough that staff knew her moods, had apparently vanished without telling a single soul, except the man now standing in her doorway with damp hair and an explanation for everything. He couldn't name the city where her brother lived, couldn't produce the number she'd allegedly called him from, claimed her regular phone was on pause, which somehow still didn't explain why she'd left her car, her dogs, her entire daily life behind without a word. Every time the questioning pushed him, Daniel tried to drift back inside the house. Every time he moved, an officer stepped into the space. He switched tactics then, started playing the victim, claimed he had rights, said he was scared of the officers, not the other way around. One officer's jaw tightened. It's weird that you're being very defensive about this. Normal people just open the door. But what Daniel didn't know is that while he stood there cycling through excuses, officers were already seconds away from the biggest revelation of his life, waiting just behind a padlocked door. Inside. It took longer than it should have, but eventually Daniel and Gina were persuaded to step outside. Officers moved in. The first step through the door told them everything was wrong. Animal feces covered the floor, thick, layered, the accumulation of weeks of neglect. Drug paraphernalia sat openly on surfaces throughout multiple rooms. The smell hid in layers, something chemical and sharp on top, and underneath it, something older, heavier, the kind of smell experienced officers learned to recognize and never quite forget. One noted that it smelled like something had been burned recently, a deliberate attempt to mask what was already seeping through. Piles of clutter had been pushed against the walls, stacked in ways that blocked corners and recesses from easy view. Officers moved methodically through every room, calling Monique's name into spaces that didn't answer back. Closets, bathroom, bedroom, the back of the hallway. Nothing. No sign of her anywhere. The search was winding down. The working theory was shifting. Maybe she'd really left under circumstances not yet understood. An officer near the back of the house was already composing his follow-up notes. Nobody in that house was ready for what came next. Then one of them stepped into the garage. Against the far wall sat a large chest freezer, padlocked shut, and Allen keys seated in the latch. The officer stared at it for a moment that felt longer than it was, his hand hovering, not quite reaching. When he spoke, his voice came out almost level. "Dude, if there's a body in here, I swear to God."
Dude? If there's a body in here, dude, I swear to God.
Nobody told him he was wrong. A locksmith was called, and while they waited, word filtered outside. The freezer was being opened. Daniel Rue unraveled. He became loud, insistent. They couldn't open it, he kept saying. No right, needed to stop. The message came over the radio in flat, clipped tones. He's freaking out, saying we can't open it. Inside the garage, someone replied without looking up. Of course he is. 14 days. The smell reached them before the lid was fully open.
Yeah, you covered it back. I swear to God.
I can smell it. I know the smell.
What's that?
I can tell that smell.
What's one?
I smell something bad.
Oh, motherfucker.
Every officer in that garage knew what it meant. One stepped back without realizing he'd moved. Another kept his hands occupied so they'd stay still. Nobody spoke for a moment that had no business lasting as long as it did. There's a person in here.
I swear to God, bro. My heart's racing right now.
Mine too.
Bro.
I don't want to see it. Give me a second. Hold still.
Mon'nique Gilbertson had been inside that chest freezer for 14 days, 2 weeks. She never left Las Vegas, never visited any brother, never walked away from her dogs. Her car had sat in that driveway the entire time. Her dogs had circled the apartment the entire time, wearing grooves in their own grief, alerting anyone within earshot. Nobody had listened, until now. Daniel Rue and Gina Lopez were handcuffed before the garage door had fully swung open. 200 times. Daniel's first story was almost elegant in its simplicity. He'd found Monique unresponsive, he said, surrounded by drug paraphernalia. He panicked, didn't know what to do with a body, put her in the freezer. Almost believable, until the autopsy. Mon'nique Gilbertson had more than 200 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in her system at the time of her death. 200 times. Let that number sit for a moment. A single lethal dose kills 1. 10 times over is incomprehensible, the kind of number that has no innocent explanation. 200 times is a decision. Methodical, deliberate, executed. This was not something that happened to Monique. This was something that was done to her, carefully and with intent. When Gina Lopez saw those toxicology results, she started talking. How it started. The story, as Gina told it, began months earlier in a Home Depot parking lot, a chance meeting. Monique, generous by nature, eventually offered Daniel a place to stay, help around the house in exchange for a room. The kind of offer a trusting person makes when they want to believe the best in someone. Within months, valuables started disappearing. Confrontations followed. Texts warned him to leave. The police were already called once about a gun found in his belongings. Warning sign after warning sign, named and acted on. Monique had done everything a careful person does when they realize they've let danger through the door. It didn't matter. Prosecutors allege Daniel made a calculation. Rather than leave, he administered a fatal quantity of fentanyl to a 68-year-old woman who had opened her home to him, then padlocked the freezer, kept the dogs fed enough to stay quiet, carried on, told anyone who asked that Monique was visiting family on the East Coast. 14 days. Nobody knew where she was, except Daniel. What came after? Daniel Rue was indicted on second-degree murder, abuse of an older or vulnerable person, and multiple drug-related felonies. Gina Lopez was charged with residential burglary and drug possession. The case is ongoing. Daniel faces the possibility of life in prison. Mon'nique Gilbertson had made her last call to the front office on October 22nd, a routine check-in. Nothing unusual. No way of knowing it would be the last one. The danger had been recognized, named, acted on, text sent, police called, a gun reported. Every reasonable step taken by a woman who understood she was in trouble and tried to do something about it. It wasn't enough. The employee who made the 911 call said it to the dispatcher like it was obvious, because it was. Her dogs are going insane. They wouldn't do that if she was okay. 14 days, those dogs had been trying to tell someone, circling the apartment, barking at the walls, doing the only thing they knew how to do. On November 6th, someone finally listened. Some cases don't let you go, and this is one of them. If you made it here, you already know. Subscribe and hit notifications. The next story involves a secret that stayed buried for 20 years and the one mistake that finally broke it open.